just as we're pivoting east, the Chinese look to be pivoting west. That our Asia policy, which is our signature global strategy today, is really greatly dependent on our Middle East policy. And we're not able to free ourselves of it. I would think that one outcome of the current crisis in the Middle East, Syria, Iran, Egypt, is that if the United States truly wants to go to Asia, it has to fix the Middle East, or it has to get to a normalcy in the Middle East. That otherwise Middle East would not provide the United States with the bandwidth to go anywhere. And secondly, that unless you have credibility in coming to some kind of a closure that is acceptable in the one region of the world where you made the mark of your foreign policy for over a decade, then it's very difficult to argue that you could just sort of have made a mess of it and then decide this is good enough and expect to move on to Asia. Iran having a new president, which cuts a very different figure, is a game changer. Yes, there is within bounds. He's not able to change the entire system. He has a limitation to his power, but there is a subtle shift in terms of whether or not you want to use, or can we use this opportunity, even the pretext of this opportunity, to play a different game. I mean, there are two things we ought to be doing in the Middle East if we really want to leave. One is to build institutions. So, other areas of the world that work have some kind of a regional institutional structure. So you have NATO and EU in Europe, you have ASEAN in Asia Pacific, you have the Organization of American States. What is our legacy in the Middle East? It's the Arab League, which was the Arabs' own doing. It's always been dysfunctional, it's still dysfunctional. And it doesn't cover the whole region, and it's not really a vehicle for the United States. We don't even have membership in it. There is no institutional structure in this region that you would say is anything like Asia. And secondly, there is no economic relationships. But the economic relationships begin by encouraging economic restructuring. So, Egypt and Tunisia are probably should have been the focus of the administration early on for economic reform. Particularly Tunisia was a small country, fairly homogeneous, well integrated already into the European economy, an export-led manufacturing services sector. It would have been the perfect candidate for a big push early on. So, I know when the history of this period is going to be written, there's going to be a lot written about, Middle East democracy failed because they're Arabs, because of the Muslim Brotherhood, because of Islam. Let's take all of that as a given. But one huge factor.
That's a pretty big given.
No. But let's say even if you accept that. But I'm just saying as we put the bullet points of what was missing, the United States' presence or absence in the Middle East compared with its presence in every other democratization is also a significant difference. We still say the objective of our diplomacy and engagement is for Assad to go, whereas that's not in the cards at all. So it's if you went to a peace conference in Geneva and if Syria came, Syria would come with the objective of receiving the surrender of the opposition, because the argument is that they're winning. Whereas our position is that he has to leave. So either we have to change that and say, look, our objective is not anybody leaving. Our objective is just ceasefire. We want to come and see how we could just create a ceasefire in place, like we've done in myriad of other conflicts around the world, or that we are willing to turn the tide in a way where our demand of Assad leaving would be credible before we went to Geneva. Nothing the president said really is enough in that regard. So it's basically a toe in the water on this issue.